Let's talk about something that many men avoid confronting, but silently suffer from: the friend zone. Two words that can break your confidence, confuse your intentions, and keep you circling a woman who never plans to truly choose you. Not because you're not good enough, but because you don't understand what this zone really is. Men need to understand this. The friend zone is not something women put you in, it's somewhere you put yourself. No woman owes you love just because you were kind, patient, or available. Let that truth sting if it has to, but let it wake you up. Because this habit of being nice, in the hope that she'll eventually wake up and see your worth, that is the slowest way to lose both her and yourself. You see, when a man doesn't claim his space, when he doesn't walk in masculine clarity, when he waits in silent hope, he becomes forgettable. Women don't fall for men who orbit around them like satellites, waiting for an invitation. Women are drawn to men who know who they are, what they want, and what they will not tolerate. If you're in the friend zone, it's because at some point you accepted a role that doesn't honor your masculine value. You became her emotional crutch, her late-night therapist, her yes man. You got comfortable being convenient. Let me tell you something every hive, you man must hear. Being accessible is not the same as being valuable. There's a difference between being emotionally intelligent and being emotionally manipulated. You listen to her problems, you offer her advice, you protect her from other men, but she runs to them anyway. Why? Because being her emotional sponge does not spark her desire. That role is safe, it's soft, and it's not romantic. Women are biologically wired to be drawn to strength, and strength doesn't chase, it leads. If you want to be respected, you need to create emotional boundaries. You need to have enough self-worth to walk away when your heart is not being met with the same energy. You need to learn how to say, I value our connection, but I'm not here to play pretend. There's a difference between friendship and self-betrayal. You know which one you're in. The truth is, some women will keep you in the friend zone because it's safe, it's easy, it strokes their ego, you give them attention, they give you nothing back, and you keep coming. That's not noble, that's emotional slavery. You want to break free, then stop trying to be liked and start living like you're already loved by yourself. Because a man who honors himself won't beg for crumbs. He'll walk away from a table that doesn't feed his soul, and that's when women notice. That's when your energy shifts. That's when you stop being the boy who waits and become the man who leads. The friend zone is not a curse. It's a test of whether you're willing to choose yourself over her comfort, a test of whether you're going to keep hoping or start deciding. So don't blame her. Stop saying, she used me. Ask yourself, why did I allow it? This isn't about bitterness, it's about boundaries. You don't need to hate her, you need to honor you. The man who refuses to stay in the friend zone is not cruel. He's courageous. He's the one who says, I'm not here to be your plan B, while you chase men who treat you like an option. You want love, then stop settling for role play, stop auditioning, stop proving, because the right woman doesn't keep a man on the bench. She chooses him boldly, clearly, fully. And until you find her, be the kind of man who walks with such self-respect that even the friend zone becomes impossible. You are not a maybe, you are a man. Let's speak the truth no one wants to hear. The friend zone isn't something that's done to you, it's something you silently accept. It's not a trap, it's not a curse, it's not a punishment that women impose on men. It's a position you willingly step into when you fail to define your worth and declare your intent. It's not rejection, it's resignation. And until you realize that, you'll keep sitting on the sidelines, cheering for a game you were never invited to play. You see, when a woman meets a man, she instinctively senses one thing: his energy, his certainty, his command over his own emotions, his ability to lead not just in his life, but in his interactions with her. And when she sees a man who hesitates, who hides behind politeness, who cloaks his interest in compliments and small favors, she places him exactly where he places himself in the safe, threatening, emotionally available, romantically neutral zone. A friend, a brother, a confidant, but never a lover, never the man who ignites her passion or commands her respect. That zone doesn't happen by accident. It's not bad luck. It's not her being confused. It's not about women wanting bad boys and rejecting good guys. That's the lie you tell yourself so you can stay in denial, so you can justify your passive behavior and emotional dependence, but deep down you know it. You weren't unclear because you were shy, you were unclear because you were afraid. Afraid that if you showed her your desire, you might lose her. Afraid that if you told her what you truly wanted, she might reject you. So instead, you chose a role where you wouldn't have to risk anything, and that's exactly what you got back. Nothing. You must understand something. Vital women are biologically wired to follow a man's lead. That doesn't mean control or domination. It means direction. It means purpose. It means strength of identity. A woman cannot follow a man who cannot first lead himself, and if you are unsure of who you are in her life, she will define it for you, and she'll do it without apology, without cruelty, and without hesitation. She will call you just a friend, because that's the energy you gave her. That's the space you created. That's the message you sent by never sending one at all. You think that by staying close, by being the shoulder to cry on, by playing the long game, that one day she will wake up and realize you were the one all along. But that's not how attraction works. Attraction isn't built on time served. It's built on tension, polarity, clarity, and mystery. You don't earn desire through endurance. You ignite it through confidence. The moment you stepped into the friend role, you traded desire for devotion. You traded passion for presence. You gave her your energy with no price, no purpose, and no challenge. And women do not value what they do not have to work for. This is not about being mean or manipulative. This is about being intentional. You cannot keep handing your heart to a woman who never asked for it and then feel victimized when she doesn't know what to do with it. You cannot keep filling her emotional tank with your time and attention, then expect her to fall in love with the mechanic. That's not how love happens. That's not how chemistry builds. That's how codependency forms, and that's why so many men end up bitter, blaming women for their own emotional confusion. If you want to stop being placed in the friend zone, stop acting like someone who doesn't belong anywhere else. Speak with clarity, show up with direction, be willing to lose her if she doesn't want what you offer, because that's how you gain your self-respect. That's how you protect your emotional energy. That's how you stop being the man who waits and become the man who chooses. If your presence doesn't come with a purpose, it becomes background noise. She gets used to you being there, always available, always ready to listen, always on call, but never desired, never pursued, never respected as a man. And don't confuse her comfort with her commitment. Just because she tells you about her problems, her pain, or her day doesn't mean you're getting closer. It means she sees you as safe. And yes, safety matters, but only after desire has been established. Without that foundation of masculine energy, of risk, of romantic intention, you're just a diary in human form, a journal she keeps in her back pocket. And one day, she'll meet a man who doesn't hesitate, and suddenly, your kindness will look weak in comparison. Not because it is weak, but because it came with no boundaries, no edge, no self-possession. You are not her emotional safety net. You are not her free therapist. You are not her emotional boy. And while she explores her options elsewhere, you are a man, and men who know their worth don't wait for someone to love them eventually. They don't hide behind friendship as a form of romantic investment. They don't sacrifice their masculinity on the altar of patience. They don't play games of pretend, hoping to be noticed one day. They walk in truth. They speak with courage, they are clear in their intent, and most importantly, they are willing to walk away from anything and anyone that doesn't recognize their value. You may think that declaring your interest will ruin everything, But let me tell you, if honesty ruins a connection, it wasn't a connection worth keeping. If being clear makes her uncomfortable, then she was never emotionally available to begin with. If your truth pushes her away, it only means she was never facing your direction. Stop fearing rejection. Start fearing regret. Start fearing the years you'll waste waiting for a woman to change her mind when she's already made up her heart. Stop fearing that moment where you might lose her, and start fearing the moment where you lose yourself. The friend zone is not about her rejecting you. It's about you refusing to rise. It's about you shrinking yourself into a role that feels safe. It's about you giving pieces of your soul away without ever asking if she wanted them. And the longer you stay there, the more you teach her to never see you differently, not because she's heartless, but because you trained her to see you as harmless. And let's be honest, some women keep you in that space because it serves them. It gives them access to a man's energy without having to give anything back. They know you won't walk away. They know you'll keep answering. They know you're emotionally loyal, even if you're not romantically claimed. But understand this, the fact that she benefits from your presence does not mean she values you as a partner. You cannot confuse convenience with commitment, and no woman will ever respect a man who doesn't respect his own emotional boundaries. You think you're being patient, but patience without purpose is passivity, and passivity is the death of masculine power. A man without conviction is like a sailboat with no wind, floating, drifting, hoping, but never arriving. Women feel this, they sense this, and they respond accordingly. Not because they're cruel, but because they are biologically drawn to leadership, to clarity, to confidence, to decisive energy. If you are not leading with your truth, you are following her indecision, and that is not attractive, that is not magnetic, that is not masculine. So stop waiting for her to see you differently. Start seeing yourself differently. Stop trying to be the man who never offends. Start being the man who never pretends. Stop being emotionally available to someone who is romantically unavailable. Start preserving your energy for a woman who doesn't need time to figure it out, but already knows what she sees in you. You don't need to chase love. You need to command respect. You don't need to beg for her affection. You need to build your direction. And when you walk in that truth, when you stop fearing the loss and start honoring your worth, something shifts. Suddenly, the friend zone becomes impossible, not because women change, but because you do. And the man who refuses to accept less than love never ends up being just a friend. He ends up being unforgettable. There is a dangerous lie being fed to men today, that being constantly available to a woman will make her see your worth. That if you just stay by her side, respond to every message, pick up every call, listen to every heartbreak, support every dream, show up every time she needs something, she will one day wake up and realize you're the man she wants. But let's strip that illusion away. Being available is not the same as being valuable. Presence does not always equal power, and a man who offers himself constantly without standards, without boundaries, without self-respect, does not appear strong. He appears desperate. You think that the more she sees you, the more she'll want you. But women don't fall for what's always there. They fall for what they admire, what they have to rise toward, what they cannot control. A man who is always emotionally on call becomes predictable, and predictability in the absence of polarity breeds boredom. You believe you're building connection by being there at all hours, but what you're actually building is a lack of respect. Because women are not drawn to men who chase their time, they are drawn to men who respect their own. Let's be honest, how many times have you cleared your schedule just to be available to her? How often have you dropped your plans, changed your pace, adjusted your rhythm just to align with hers? How many texts did you send back instantly, afraid that if you didn't respond right away, she might lose interest? That anxiety doesn't come from love. That's not attraction. That's insecurity in disguise, and no woman is going to look at that kind of behavior and think, wow, what a strong man. She's going to think he has nothing better to do. And that thought alone destroys the foundation of desire. Because in the end, people don't value what they can get at any time. They value what requires intentional effort to earn, what has purpose behind it, what stands on its own, without clinging, without proving, without pleading. And if you are always there, always listening, always giving, and never receiving, you are not valuable. You are just accessible, and there's a difference, a big one. Value is built when you stand in your masculine frame, when your time means something, when your space is earned, not assumed, when your presence has weight not because you force it, but because you've built something real in your life that she has to rise up to reach. A man who knows his worth doesn't try to be everywhere. He knows that being everywhere is the fastest way to become invisible, and when a man becomes invisible, even though he's present, he's not seen. Not truly, not in the way that lights a fire in a woman's soul. There's a reason why some men get chased, while others get kept as emotional backups. It's not because of money or looks or status. It's because of energy. It's because some men give freely without ever asking themselves if it's being received, appreciated, or reciprocated, and others give only when it aligns with their values, their purpose, their vision. The first man says yes to everything because he fears being left behind. The second man says no when needed because he knows his life doesn't stop for anyone, and that difference, it changes everything. A man who is too available becomes a man who is taken for granted, not intentionally, not maliciously, but inevitably, because that's how human nature works. Familiarity dulls excitement. Constant attention becomes background noise. She doesn't have to wonder what you're doing, because you already told her. She doesn't have to miss you, because you never left. She doesn't have to choose you, because you've already chosen her 1,000 times before she even noticed you. You might think that showing up constantly proves you're serious, that you're loyal, that you're dependable, and yes, those things matter, but loyalty only has value when it's mutual. Dependability only inspires desire when it's coupled with power. Otherwise, it just feels like weakness dressed up as devotion. And no woman wants to fall in love with a man who has nothing else going on but her. That's not romance, that's obsession. And obsession is not attractive, it's unsettling. You don't have to play games. You don't have to be cold or detached or manipulative. But you do need to understand that availability without standards makes you common. And what is common is rarely craved. Value isn't shown through how much time you give, it's shown through the intention behind the time you offer. A hive, Al, your man doesn't chase attention, he earns admiration by who he is, not how fast he replies. Not how quickly he shows up, not how eagerly he abandons his own plans just to fit into hers. Ask yourself when was the last time she had to wait for you, not because you were playing hard to get, but because you had a mission to complete, a purpose to pursue, a vision that required your full focus. When was the last time your time was so full of substance that she had to schedule a place in your world? If the answer is never, then you're not leading, you're orbiting. And men who orbit are always seen but never centered. You teach people how to treat you by what you tolerate. If you're always available, always eager, always the first to call, the first to text, the first to plan, then you're teaching her that your world revolves around hers. And once that dynamic is set, it's incredibly difficult to reverse. Because the moment you start pulling back, she won't interpret it as confidence. She'll see it as punishment. And the only reason she'll feel punished is because you trained her to expect your constant presence in the first place. You think love is about always being there, but true love, mature love, balanced love, it grows in space. It grows in distance. It grows when both people have their own path, their own passions, their own power, and they choose to merge, not to escape, but to build. To add, not to complete. You are not a filler. You are not a patch for her broken emotions. You are not a sidekick in someone else's story. And if you act like you are, don't be surprised when she treats you that way. Real value is not loud. It doesn't beg. It doesn't chase. It simply exists with dignity. It shows up with confidence. It gives from a full cup, not an empty heart hoping to be noticed. And the irony is, the moment you stop being constantly available, the moment you start focusing on your goals, on your health, on your mind, on your craft, on your vision, she begins to see you differently. Not because you changed to manipulate her, but because you finally stepped into the man you were supposed to be. So don't just be present, be powerful. Don't just be reachable, be rare. Don't just be the man who's always there. Be the man who's remembered when he's not. That's what creates attraction. That's what inspires respect. That's what turns availability into value when it's offered with purpose, not out of fear. Because the man who is always waiting is never desired. But the man who is building something worth waiting for, he becomes unforgettable. Self-respect is not a luxury for a man. It's a necessity. It is not some decorative trait that makes you look good on paper. It is the very essence of your emotional architecture. Without self-respect, a man becomes pliable, weak, lost in the fog of other people's expectations, and constantly bending to earn affection that should be mutual, not transactional. And one of the clearest ways self-respect manifests is through emotional boundaries. If you don't know where you end and someone else begins, you'll lose yourself in the name of love and call it loyalty. But it's not loyalty, it's self-betrayal. You see, too many men confuse emotional openness with emotional exposure. They think being a good man means being endlessly available, endlessly forgiving, endlessly patient even when they're being drained, disrespected, or dismissed. They think being kind means never walking away. But that's not self-respect, that's self-abandonment, and the more you abandon yourself for someone who doesn't value you, the less they will respect you. Women don't admire men who cannot protect their emotional space. They test them, they push the line, not out of malice, but out of instinct. They want to feel the edge, and when there is no edge, when there is no, when there is no line that can't be crossed, you don't look strong, you look easy to manipulate. Self-respect builds the internal filter that tells you what you will allow and what you won't. It draws the invisible line around your soul that says, you can come this far, but no further, not because you're cold, not because you're controlling, but because you understand your value and you're no longer willing to hand over your peace to someone who hasn't earned access to your heart. That's not ego, that's emotional intelligence. That's maturity. When you lack self-respect, you apologize for your standards. You shrink your voice to keep the peace. You second, guess your intuition every time she makes you feel like you're overreacting. You let her vent her pain, dump her confusion, and use you as her emotional sponge, and you smile through it all, hoping that one day she'll realize you're the man who stayed, but deep down you're tired. You're resentful, you're drained, you're invisible, because she doesn't see you as the man who stayed. She sees you as the man who never stood for himself. A man who respects himself doesn't fear disappointing others. He fears betraying himself. He doesn't over-explain, over-apologize, or overextend. He simply observes, communicates, and decides. He doesn't chase emotional validation. He commands emotional clarity. That's the kind of man a woman cannot manipulate. That's the kind of man she either respects or loses. Because when you have emotional boundaries, you're not afraid to walk away from things that dishonor your peace. You're not addicted to proximity. You're committed to your purpose. Without emotional boundaries, you let your emotions become dictated by someone else's mood swings. If she's upset, you're upset. If she's cold, you feel unworthy. If she ignores you, you panic. If she pulls away, you chase. That's not strength. That's emotional dependence, and no woman will ever desire a man who is emotionally dependent on her for his sense of worth. She may use him, she may complain about him, she may even keep him around as a placeholder, but she will never respect him. And without respect, there is no real intimacy, only performance. You teach people how to treat you by how you treat yourself. If you're always giving second chances, always accepting half truths, always pretending you're okay just to avoid conflict, you're not being noble, you're being avoidant. Conflict isn't the enemy, dishonor is. And every time you avoid a conversation that needs to happen, every time you suppress your truth to maintain a connection, you are eroding your own integrity, and integrity is the backbone of masculine strength. Without it, you're just reacting, drifting, hoping, pleading. That's not a man, that's a shadow of one. Boundaries are not walls. They're not barriers to love, they are the proof that your love is rooted in truth. A man who cannot set boundaries is a man who cannot protect love, because love without boundaries becomes chaos. It becomes a place where anything goes, where standards vanish, where you lose your shape in the name of keeping her around. But when you lose your shape, you also lose your power. A woman cannot lean on a man who has no spine. She cannot respect a man who lets her emotions dictate his identity. Self-respect teaches you when to engage and when to step back, when to speak and when to remain silent, when to support and when to say, "That's not mine to carry." You are not her therapist. You are not her savior. You are not responsible for healing her from wounds she refuses to address. Your job is not to fix her, it is to be whole in yourself, to walk in your purpose, to protect your peace, and to invite her into that wholeness, not as a project, but as a partner. A woman is not looking for a man who bleeds for her, she's looking for a man who leads her. But how can you lead her if you're emotionally unstable every time she pulls away? How can you be her pillar if you crumble under her silence? You have to understand women don't want to lead you emotionally. They test you to see if you can hold your center. If every time she's distant, you fall apart, you're not showing her your heart. You're showing her your fragility. You're showing her that your emotions are a weapon she can use against you. And once she sees that, the dynamic shifts. You become the one chasing clarity, the one needing reassurance, the one waiting for her to define what the relationship means. And in that space, you lose all polarity. Attraction dies in ambiguity, but when you have self-respect, you don't chase closure, you create it. You don't wait for her to validate your worth. You know who you are, you know what you bring, and if she doesn't see it, you don't beg. You bless her path and focus on your own. That's not arrogance, that's sovereignty, and sovereign men are not ruled by emotion, they are informed by it. They don't suppress how they feel, but they don't let how they feel control what they do. They respond, not react, and that emotional discipline, that restraint, that depth, that's what makes a man magnetic. You can't fake emotional boundaries. You either live by them or you don't. You can say you respect yourself all day long, but if you tolerate disrespect in silence, if you smile through anxiety, if you accept dishonesty just to maintain connection, your actions will expose your weakness. And no matter how good your intentions are, a woman will always feel when your energy is off, when your strength is performance, when your patience is self-denial, when your support is actually fear of rejection. She'll feel it and she'll lose interest. A man with emotional boundaries is not cold, he is clear. He is warm, but he is not weak. He gives love, but never at the expense of his soul. He listens, but he does not absorb chaos. He serves, but he is not submissive. He communicates, but he is not controlled. And when something violates his peace, he doesn't scream, he doesn't rage, he doesn't panic. He simply removes himself. Quietly, calmly, powerfully, because real power doesn't need to prove itself. It just moves, So if you want to be respected, if you want to be desired, if you want to be loved in a way that doesn't drain you, start with this: draw the line. Not to punish, not to manipulate, but to protect, because you cannot receive what you do not require, and you cannot require what you do not first embody. Self-respect is the gatekeeper of your peace. And until you honor that, you will keep attracting people who walk all over you, not because they're evil, but because you never told them where the line was. True love doesn't grow in confusion. It doesn't linger in uncertainty. It doesn't thrive in maybe. A man who wants love must learn that indecision is not romantic. It's cowardice wrapped in passivity. It's avoidance pretending to be patience. And too many men lose themselves waiting in the shadows of maybe, mistaking silence for potential, mixed signals for depth, and emotional inconsistency for mystery. But love, real love, does not play hide and seek. It stands tall, it declares, it chooses. A woman knows what she feels. She may be unsure for a moment. She may hesitate due to fear or past wounds. But if she sees a man of presence, clarity, and certainty, she responds, not out of pressure, not out of obligation, but out of resonance. Because love doesn't bloom when a man plays it safe. It blooms when he stands in the fire of emotional exposure and says, "This is who I am, this is what I feel, and this is what I'm choosing." That kind of man doesn't beg. He doesn't chase approval. He doesn't confuse attention with intention. He leads with decision, and decision is what moves love out of fantasy and into reality. Too many men think patience means silence. They think waiting without clarity is honorable, that if they just keep showing up, keep being available, keep being the emotional safety net, one day she'll look back and choose him. But love is not earned through endurance. It's not won by proving you're always there. That only teaches her that you'll stay no matter what, that no matter how she pulls away, you'll still orbit around her, hoping one day she sees your worth. But here's the truth: if she can't see your value in the light, she won't recognize it in the shadows. If she needs to lose you to realize your worth, she was never truly choosing you. True love doesn't exist in the limbo of "I don't know." It doesn't ask you to wait for her to make up her mind while you put your life on pause. A woman who wants you will move mountains to be near you. She won't risk losing you to her confusion. She will not keep you as a backup plan while she explores her options. And if she does, it's not love, it's emotional convenience. You're not her man, you're her maybe, her placeholder, her safety net, and no man with self-respect should accept being treated as an emotional plan B. Love demands clarity, not perfection, not performance, but clarity, clarity of intent, clarity of direction, clarity of emotion. If you find yourself constantly decoding her messages, wondering what she means, asking your friends for interpretation, you're not in love. You're in a psychological maze, and the longer you stay in that maze, the more you lose your edge. The more you start to believe that inconsistency is a challenge to conquer, rather than a red flag to walk away from. Because a woman who is for you, truly for you, does not let you live in confusion. She doesn't keep you on emotional trial. She doesn't wait until every other option fails to realize you were the one she should have chosen. She doesn't keep you guessing. She shows up, she leans in, she gives as much as she receives, because that's what love does. It chooses, it doesn't hold auditions. You must understand, love is not born from scarcity. It's not something you need to earn by proving your worth over time while someone else weighs their options. That is not love, that is emotional scarcity, codependency, and self-betrayal. You don't need to convince someone to love you. You need to be so anchored in who you are that anyone who cannot see your value is disqualified from access to your life. A man who knows what he wants is rare, and a man who is willing to walk away from anything less than that, he is powerful. Because the boldness to choose also comes with the boldness to lose, and most people aren't willing to lose. They'd rather stay in maybe. They'd rather cling to crumbs. They'd rather have the illusion of connection than face the grief of letting go. But the truth is you can't receive what's meant for you until you release what's keeping you stuck. You can't keep entertaining women who aren't ready and expect to attract a woman who is. You can't keep saying yes to half love and expect to build something whole. You have to be willing to draw a line not from ego but from truth and say, I'm no longer entertaining indecision. I'm no longer feeding what doesn't feed me. I'm no longer investing in someone who isn't investing back. A woman who truly sees you will never ask you to stay in limbo. She will never ask you to wait while she explores what else is out there. She will never need to think about it for months while you pour your heart out in hopes that one day she'll say yes. That's not a woman in love, that's a woman unsure. And a man with self-respect does not build his life around uncertainty. He walks away from it, not out of bitterness, not out of pride, but out of understanding that love is not supposed to feel like begging for a seat at the table. When you accept maybe, you teach yourself that love must be earned through performance, that your value is tied to how much you give, how long you wait, how much you suffer, and that creates a pattern of emotional self-neglect that follows you into every relationship. You start to believe that you are always the one who gives more, that love always means settling, that being a good man means being the one who loves without limits, even when those limits protect your peace. But true love is not passive, it's not afraid, it's not vague, it is bold, it speaks, it shows up, it commits, and when a woman is truly ready to love, she will not make you guess. She will not make you wait for clarity. She will not keep you on an emotional roller coaster while she decides whether or not you're enough. You won't feel anxious, you'll feel seen. You won't feel desperate, you'll feel chosen, and that is the difference. Love that thrives in maybe is not love, it's limbo, and a man with vision does not build his kingdom on unstable ground. He waits for no one to validate his path. He does not invest his heart in a place that doesn't offer return. And he does not lose himself trying to be enough for someone who cannot even choose him, because he understands love is a mirror, and if someone cannot meet you with the same energy, clarity, and devotion that you bring, it's not your person. It's your lesson. You don't have to fight for what's already yours. You don't have to chase what's divinely aligned, but you do have to be bold enough to let go of anything that keeps you stuck in confusion. You have to be willing to grieve the almost, to walk away from the potential, to say no to the situationships that drain you just because they feel familiar, because as long as you settle for maybe, you are blocking yes, and yes, letting go hurts. Walking away from someone you wanted to choose, you will break your heart, but that heartbreak will also build your backbone. It will remind you of what you will no longer tolerate. It will purify your standards, and it will create space for the kind of love that does not leave you questioning. That kind of love is not loud, but it is clear. It doesn't rush, but it is consistent. It doesn't perform, but it is present. So, if you're in a place where you're constantly asking, does she feel the same? Pause, breathe, and remember who you are. You are not a placeholder. You are not a backup plan. You are not a safe option for someone who can't make up their mind. You are a man who chooses, a man who shows up, a man who leads with clarity and walks in purpose, and any woman who cannot rise to meet that is not your loss, she is God's redirection, because in the end, true love doesn't flirt with ambiguity. It declares itself, it moves in intention, it does not live in maybe, it requires bold choice.